How much RAM do you really need for your PC? RAM, or random access memory, is a vital hardware component used by your Windows 10 PC to store temporary data that can be accessed quickly by software, speeding up processes and keeping you from banging your head against the desk in frustration. Essentially, the more RAM you have, the more you can have going on at once. The amount of RAM you need in your PC depends on what you plan on doing. Gaming, for instance, takes a generous amount of RAM, and media editing can take a lot of RAM. Find out how much RAM you currently have, what type of RAM is compatible with your system, and how much RAM you should have for specific daily tasks. Benefits of upgrading your RAM. Let us get one thing straight: adding RAM to your computer is not a process that will magically make everything faster. It will, however, aid your PC in multitasking and performing heavy duties like gaming and multimedia editing. More RAM doesn't make the computer faster, but it will make it harder for it to get bogged down. If you have a PC with a beefy graphics card and fast processor but you can't figure out why 17 browser tabs won't simultaneously load without grinding things to a halt, adding RAM will probably help. If you have an old PC that you want to eke a few more years out of, adding RAM could make the difference between a couple years of frustration and a couple years of fond memories. How much RAM do you really need? How much RAM you need in your PC depends heavily on what you use your PC for on a day-to-day basis and on how long you intend to keep the computer. If you're rethinking of investing in a completely new machine in the near future, waiting things out might be the best bet. If you already have a computer you love but want to shift gears into a different daily task that requires better performance, upgrading your RAM as part of the process is a great idea. Productivity. If you use your Windows 10 computer for word processing, checking emails, browsing the internet, and playing solitaire, you should have no problem using 4 GB of RAM. If you are performing all of these activities at once, however, you might experience a dip in performance. A lot of budget PCs come with 4 GB of RAM as a base option, but if you plan on keeping your machine for several years, opting for 8 GB of RAM is the safer bet, even if you only use it for light duties. Gaming. We're not talking about solitaire. Heavy PC gaming at acceptable performance levels requires a substantial amount of RAM. Using a few popular modern titles as references, it is evident that gamers should have at least 8 GB of RAM, the recommended minimum amount for Fallout 4, Witcher 3 and Doom. If you're a gamer and want to ensure you have enough RAM for some current titles and future titles, go with at least 16 GB. If your budget allows, why not push it up to 32 GB? Virtual reality VR. VR is a relatively new medium, at least in its latest incarnation, and it requires a good chunk of RAM to run smoothly. We're talking HTC Vive and Oculus Rift here, both of which should have at least 8 GB of RAM on the associated PC to run smoothly. The Vive only recommends 4 GB, but honestly, go.